स्टार्ट कर दीजिए मैम।
हो गया अब तक हाँ ठीक है, हो गया। थैंक यू मैम, थैंक यू।
Okay मैम, okay.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm sorry for the delay. There was some technical issues. And let's start with the lecture. I hope you're all here. So, a very warm good afternoon. So I hope you can see. Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for joining in, Vaibhav, Anjali. And Karthik, yeah, sure. Karthik, the difference that was discussed was between animal communication and human communication. So that is the topic that we were discussing. And sure, we will have a look at it if we have time today, or else please attend the class. And whenever I find time, Karthik, I will definitely explain it to you in detail. Hello, Shubh, Chetana, Abhineet, Mayank, Anshika, Garima, Khushi, Bhavya. Thank you for joining in. So, Kashish, hello. So I think let's start. I hope the screen is visible to you. And let's just have a look at what we did in the last class. Okay, so we discussed about formal and informal communication, flow of communication, communication networks, informal communication, or grapevine. And we looked at downward communication and upward communication. We looked at horizontal or lateral communication, diagonal communication. All right, and I hope this is clear to you. Then we looked at communication networks, under which we examined chain network, wire network, wheel network, circle network, and all channel network. Okay, and we focused on how either a person is selecting his recipients, or how the recipients are sharing the information that the sender has sent them. All right, and then we looked at grapevine or informal communication, in which we looked at single strand chain, gossip chain, and probability chain, and cluster chain. We also looked at the advantages and the disadvantages of grapevine communication. And I told you that grapevine communication is important. It's an important topic, and you might get a long answer on grapevine communication. So thank you for joining in, Akash, Kimti, Vaibhav, Muskan, Rishabh, Akshita, Kushal, Anurag, Ladli, Rishabh, Rohit, Aditya, Vaibhav, Rizar, Priyanshu, Kanchika. All right. So in today's lecture, we'll be moving on to, just a second. Yeah. So we will be discussing barriers to communication, strategies to overcome barriers to communication, 7 C's of effective communication, and listening. And again, we are doing a very, very important topic, a very integral topic to communication theory, that is barriers to communication. We definitely looked at barriers to communication when we were discussing the definitions, and we mentioned that it was mentioned that we will be looking at it in detail. Okay, so what is barriers to communication or barriers to communication? For example, right now I am sitting in a virtual setup, and you are all sitting in the comforts of your home watching this session on your laptop or your mobile or your tablets. And if there is some kind of an issue, right, we had one right now, there was a technical issue which had to be solved. So there was a barrier in communication. The session could not be started at 3 o'clock, right? So there was a break in communication over there. And then, for example, if I start teaching in Spanish, if I start teaching in French, then again, that's one barrier to communication. And if I speak some kind of an English which you may not understand, then again, you will feel that there is a break in communication, and you don't understand, and you won't understand what I'm saying, right? So these are the things that, somehow become somehow become a barrier or a break in conversation. So let's have a look at that. Communication is a smooth transmission of information, ideas. Just a second. ideas, emotions, and feelings, and more importantly, transmission of meaning from one to another, where the intended message encoded by the sender is grasped by the reader and by the receiver, and he she responds accordingly. Right? So what is communication? We discussed right at the beginning that it is a transfer or a transmission of information, meaningful information, from the receiver, from the sender to the receiver, from the sender to the receiver. But in many cases, we fail to communicate the desired information, knowledge, or emotion, as some barrier crops up between the sender and the receiver, which prevents a successful communication, distorts the message, or hampers the process and makes communication meaningless. Okay, and here are the barriers to communication. First is a physical environment, which can be caused by time, place, space, climate, noise, or choice of medium. Then we have barriers caused by wrong choice of medium, semantic barriers, which are caused by varied connotative meanings, cultural barriers, which are caused by diversity of cultures, psychological or attitudinal barriers, which are caused by moods, attitudes, and relationships issues. And lastly, we have barriers caused by varying perception of reality, which are caused by levels of understanding and comprehension. So when we're communicating orally, it may happen that the communication environment is noisy, and consequently the receiver of the message is not able to hear us clearly. Right? And the noisy environment is a barrier to communication. When we're using the word noise over here, it is very particularly, it means something in communication. It means that whenever there is some issue in communication, whenever there is a break in communication, noise is created. All right, it can be like virtually there is some issue, right? Or I plan to take this session on Instagram live, and a lot other many people join in, not just my students who are from BCom, but from other courses, or people just random strangers, right? So they can create a lot of issues in the chat box, which can be distracting too. Right? So that is what we call as noise. If the communication environment is noisy, all right, then two unknown persons accidentally meet and want to communicate but do not have a common language, that can be the medium in which they communicate. If our handwriting is illegible, which of course is the common problem for all teachers, when you write something and it's like scratching on the paper and we don't know if we should mark you well or not, right? And we use very subject specific jargon which the receiver has no knowledge of, and then the communication would not achieve its desired goal. Okay, sorry. Noise. So what is noise? In the field of professional communication, in the field of professional business communication, the communication barrier or any unwanted interference between the speaker or the encoder and the receiver or the decoder, which hampers the communication flow, is termed as noise. Noise here does not merely refer to the physical noise, but to any barrier that prevents the flow of communication. All right. So what is noise? Noise is the unwanted interference between the encoder or the sender or the receiver or the decoder, which hampers or breaks any kind of communication flow. It does not just mean physical noise, like a lot of noise that's happening in the class, but it can mean anything, like a change in the language, a wrong choice of the medium, etc. Okay, and noise or barriers can be of two kinds. The first is channel noise, that's external, and semantic noise, that is internal. So let's look at channel noise. Channel noise means when there is any unwanted interference or snag in the medium of communication, it is termed as channel noise. Physical noise in the channel. First of all, of course, we enter a classroom and there's a lot of chatter. and there's a lot of noise that is created, physical noise created in the classroom. So a teacher cannot teach over there. Right, so that's physical noise. Undesirable physical noise is a great barrier to communication. Any physical noise which is not related to communication process can cause a barrier. Or if you go to a crowd and scream out your friend's name who perhaps has gotten lost, and with all the noise, with all the traffic sounds, perhaps you cannot hear him, he cannot hear you. So this is physical noise. Then use of inappropriate media. What does this mean? Inappropriate selection of media to communicate messages can lead to miscommunication or may not have the desired result. For example, if I were to communicate with all 300 of you on WhatsApp, using instead of a group, I'll send you individual texts, right? So by the time I finish texting you all, I'll be really tired, right? And it may also happen that if I were to text you and you are a total of 300 or 500 students, I may only have the capacity to text 100 or maximum 50 students, right? So I am choosing the wrong medium to send you a message, right? What I should have done instead, I should have given you any message if I were to deliver during the session when I know that everybody is going to be present, right? So this is a selection of the wrong media. What kind of media you're using, what kind of medium you're using to convey the message, right? For example, if the state government, if Delhi government wants to tell us that we are going into a lockdown, right? So how are they going to do it? Are they going to send us an SMS? Are they going to send us a WhatsApp? Are they going to be on Instagram? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to choose the medium that is most powerful and that is present in everyone's homes. That is a television, right? So they will be and there'll be a small notice, there'll be a small notification, or the chief minister will be present as part of the proceedings to tell us that there'll be a lockdown, right? So choosing the wrong media or choosing the appropriate media is very important for communication. Then we have multiple transfer stations. What does that mean? It may also happen that the message changes in its tone and meaning because of it being transferred too many times, which hampers the communication, right? Like I gave you an example in the last class, and I told you when I said that rumors can start anytime and anywhere. And for example, if I start a rumor that Rahul is getting promoted, right? And by the time it has passed on to 15 or 20 people, it has become Rakesh, right? From Rahul, it has become Rakesh. Rakesh is getting promoted. All right. So it has gone to multiple transfer stations and it has changed in meaning. Like one of you also remembered, and I told you that Chinese Whisper is the best example of it, a game that we used to play when we were young, right? We used to sit in the circle and we used to think of a dialogue and then we used to pass it all along. So, and we only had one chance. We didn't repeat it, right? So as and when it went across the group, the message passed across the group, it changed in its meaning, right? Because there were multiple transfer stations, there were multiple receivers, and there were multiple senders. So the meaning kept on changing, right? Then information overload. A message will only provide that much information as is required to understand it. Too much of information can lead to a situation where the intended meaning is lost. All right, so what happens is, for example, I'm giving you a lecture right now and I start teaching you something that you may not understand, but I will say that, it's part of your syllabus and something that is absolutely above your level, right? You're all undergraduate students. And what if I start teaching you about research, okay, and say that this is part of it? Yeah, it may be part of communication theory, but it is not necessarily going to connect with you or help you in any manner, right? I am giving you information that perhaps you are not even required to study, right? And you do not have that intellectual capability to process that kind of information on an undergraduate level, right? So it happens a lot when sometimes, you've been given so much information that you don't know what to do about it, right? And you end up getting confused. A lot of times, sometimes used to happen this in math with us in maths class, right? So we used to be given a lot of equations and all of that, and we're like, huh, how do we get about it? Right? So sometimes the information that is given to you may or may not be as important, right? For example, if I tell a student that the holidays are to begin next week, right? And then that person goes to the class and gives this whole lecture about, so this is going to happen and that is going to happen, and this happened with me personally. I got up in the morning, I woke up at 9 o'clock, I had my breakfast, I did this, I did that, and somewhere in that middle he tells you that the holidays are happening next week, the holidays start next week. So you do not need that information of him waking up and having breakfast and all of that. You just wanted one piece of information, that is when the holiday is starting. So you should be very careful about what kind of information you are relaying to the other person. Does it mean that it's important? And how carefully are you telling the other person your issue without sounding too nonsensical sometimes, and without sounding too without confusing the other person. All right. Then we have the fear of superiors. This happens a lot in the organization when there is this fear of the manager, the fear of someone who's above us. Perhaps even a teacher at the HOD, right? We often feel scared of asking a question to the teacher because we would think that what if he or she thinks that we are stupid? What if he or she thinks that, we didn't understand what he or she was teaching us, right? So it often happens that one wants to pass on some information to one's superior, but she cannot do it, as she feels that the senior or the superior would get offended. Often the way superior would react makes us not to communicate what we truly feel or think, which can be the major barrier to smooth functioning of an organization. So oftentimes, sometimes it may happen that you have more information on me, right? Especially with exams, right? When exams are starting, when they're going to be like, what is the date sheet, and are they going to be online, are they going to be offline? So sometimes you will have more information on that, and if I ask you, you may not be able to tell me because you're scared. What if ma'am thinks that this is wrong, right? So that can be the question. So this thing about superiors that can cause a break in conversation. Then negative presuppositions. One usually has a feeling that a memo is always issued to seek clarification or to warn or inform, whereas a memo can also be issued to congratulate someone. People have a negative proposition about memos, so when someone gets news that his or her friend got a memo, she starts feeling bad for any reason. So the example for this is, if you're working in an organization, and I'm sure you have siblings and you have parents working right now from home, and you know how stressful the environment is for all of us. And whenever they tell you that they've got an email from their manager, they might sound worried, right? They might wonder, now what are we going to do now? I'm sure he or she is asking, the manager is asking for us to do more work or to stay up late at night, right? So we always think like that, and sometimes we do not end up opening the mail. What if that mail contains good news? What if that mail contains the message that you're going to get a bonus, or you can take a day off. We're being given an off day to every employee who has worked really hard. So the fact that when we are thinking negatively and we assume that we're not going to share this or that, or we're going to open this mail or this message, it might contain something bad, that again is going to break the communication, right? Then communication selectivity. When we are selective in our listening, it can be a barrier to communication. It can also be a significant barrier when one decides to read only parts of a document. For example, right now when I'm teaching you and we're having this session, you are on your mobile using Instagram, right? You are perhaps Snapchatting with your friend, or you are eating, or you're watching something. So of course you won't know what I'm teaching, right? So again, in the class, in a physical class, if we are sitting and the teacher is teaching, and you perhaps start daydreaming, you start looking out of the window, then you don't know what's happening. And then, of course, it happens that when we receive an item and we start reading things that are not important, and we forget the important things, then again there's a break in communication. And when we are, making things, or we don't know how to use them, if the thing says just put it on your face for 15 minutes and you put it for half an hour and your face burns, right? So that's again communication selectivity. Then poor listening. If one is a poor listener, then it can itself be a barrier to communication. That listening is significant. That, for example, you cannot, listen to me carefully. You are always getting distracted. So that's another communication barrier. So am I clear so far? The screen has already been shared. I've told you this, that whenever there is some issue, when you cannot see the screen or when you cannot hear me, just leave and then rejoin. Leave and rejoin. Okay. Um, so far, do you have any issues with the communication barriers that we have discussed? Tushar, can you please ask the question again? What is the question? I can't find it. Tushar, what is the question? Okay. Yes. So we have completed channel or external noise, and now we will be looking at semantic noise. Yeah. Tushar, what is the question? Thank you, Vaishali. Yeah, Shivam, multiple transfer station is, just keep in mind, Chinese whisper. Like Shivam, if I tell you some kind of message, and you go on to tell, your friends कि ऐसा हुआ class में, वैसा हुआ, ऐसा हुआ class में. But then by the time, your friends tell you, हेलो मैम, बीच में ब्रेक हो गया था क्या? हेलो ललिता मैम, हेलो. क्या, guys, can you hear me? Am I audible and visible? हाँ, वीडियो पॉज हो गई थी, कुछ इशू हो गया था. Am I audible and visible right now? No, but right now, am I audible and visible? Yes, there was a break. There was a barrier in communication, right? An external barrier in communication. But right now, is it clear? Yeah. Okay. So I was telling Shivam, yeah. So Shivam asked me what multiple transfer station is, and Shivam, just keep in mind the example of Chinese whisper. That, for example, if I were to tell you some information that the holidays start on Monday, all right, and I give you another information, that is absolutely irrelevant. But then you tell this another person, you tell Kimti, for example, you tell Kimti will tell Shivesh will tell Swati will tell someone else, right? So as and when, the transfer stations are get, they're adding, right? And as they keep on adding, and then the information starts changing, right? And by the time, Swati tells someone else, like for example, Swati tells Chirag, what happens is that information is completely distorted. And then the holidays were supposed to start from Monday. By the time Siddhi knows, the 10th or the 11th person knows, the holidays are starting from Wednesday. So that is multiple transfer station. That if you keep adding more and more recipients to your information, or sharing of information, then the information keeps changing with each receiver. It keeps on changing, and it keeps getting distorted. Things keep adding to the information. So do you get what I'm saying, Shivam? Uh, did you understand what I'm saying, Shivam? Shivam, is it clear? Chirag is asking negative presupposition. Chirag, like I've given you an example for if you're working in an organization, and you get emails every day. You get emails every day, and you're fed up of it sometimes. But then there is an email that comes, and you're like, oh God, another email from a manager. But what if that email is actually something about your bonus, something about an holiday, right? So we just sometimes assume the worst of things. It's negatively, we think that, just because an email has come, it means it might be something bad, right? So that is negative presupposition. Or for example, if I keep on messaging you about, things to do, like, this is the assignment, that is the assignment, you have to do this, you have to do that. So once, for example, if I just message you out of the blue about something good, that, your exams are cancelled, you don't have to do your assignment, right? Your exams are not cancelled, okay? Your exams are not cancelled. So for example, I just message you something like that, and you're like, you know what, ma'am ne phir se message kar diya hai, ma'am has messaged again, it must be something about the assignment. So you do not open it. All right, so you're negatively assuming that, galat hi hoga, it must be something bad, so you're not going to open it, right? So that is negative presupposition, that you don't even know what the message is, but you're already assuming it's going to be bad. Okay, Chirag, I hope it's clear. Your exams are happening, guys. Okay, this was just an example. Snag in a medium means a technical, a glitch of any kind, right? An issue, a break. Snag means break. कुछ भी issue हो गया, कुछ भी glitch आ गया, that. Okay, Kimti? Okay, all right. External. Okay, external. How is it? How is there a break in in our communication externally? All right. So we looked at when there's a physical noise, there's a lot of noise, there's a whole crowd there, right? Use of inappropriate media. We have chosen Snapchat to conduct a class, right? Then multiple transfer stations. The more the recipients, the more the information can get distorted. Then information overload. We have given so much information that you forgot to know, that you didn't understand what the real information was. Then of course we have looked at superiors, that sometimes we are scared of, intimidated by the people, so we do not speak to them. Negative presupposition, assuming something is wrong. Then it's communication selectivity. We choose the wrong medium, or we choose to only read. We do not choose the wrong medium. We choose to only listen to those parts that we think are important, but perhaps it may or may not be important. Then poor listening. Poor listening is, of course, when you start to daydream, you perhaps might be daydreaming right now and not listening to what my lecture is about, right? Then semantic noise. Now, semantic noise is more internal. We have looked at externally, wrong medium, listening issues. Now we are looking at semantic noise. What is semantic noise? It can be defined as noise or barrier that is generated from within a message. As language is connotative, that is, meaning of what does connotative mean? Then meaning of a word is not always stated directly and can also be implied. Therefore, the communication process fails many times, as the word same word is interpreted differently by different people. So because we have a lot of these words that may mean something and the other person interprets it differently, right? So that can change the entire meaning, right? If I say apologies, right, and it comes across as a very formal way of saying sorry, right, but it means the same thing, right? And if we are talking to a friend and if we did something and we just say, oh my god, please apologize, it may sound sarcastic, right? It may sound sarcastic. Instead we could have just done with please, yeah, sorry, right? We could have done with that, but we say, oh my god, please apologize. So that does not make sense, right? And it can be interpreted in a wrong way, and then there is again a break in communication because your friend might think that he or she is still not sorry, right? So what is semantic noise? First, limited vocabulary. Limited vocabulary can become a significant barrier to communication, as it can create not only a problem in understanding things but also may lead to a situation where the person is not able to express what he or she understands, right? So for example, if we go to a different state and we go to Maharashtra and we don't know Marathi, right? We don't know Marathi and we only know a few words, like 5, 6 words maximum. And there we end up living with a lot of the people, right? A lot of the local people who speak in Marathi, and but we're not able to explain what we are saying. We are not able to explain what we are thinking. Sorry, we are not able to explain what we are thinking, and we end up speaking those 5, 6 words, and nobody understands us. So that's limited vocabulary. That you know what you have to say, but you don't know how to say it, right? You go to Gujarat, you don't know Gujarati, and you just end up saying kem cho, kem cho, kem cho, right? Apart from that, you don't know what kem cho ke alawa what else you can say, right? So limited vocabulary can be a huge break in conversation. Then incompatibility between verbal and non-verbal language. Then we communicate not only with our words, but we also communicate with non-verbal cues. We have already discussed this, right? Dress, eye contact, physical touch, facial expressions, gestures, postures, right? So often we use non-verbal cues or body language consciously, but many times the non-verbal cues are unconscious. It is essential that our gestures and postures are compatible with our words. Wherever it is not so, we are misinterpreted or misunderstood. So whenever we are speaking something and it does not reflect in our voice, it does not reflect in our eyes, it does not reflect in our gestures, so it can be interpreted in the wrong way, it can be understood in the wrong way, right? For example, if we go to an interview in our clothes that we wear at home, perhaps like a night suit, so what will that be interpreted as? It will be interpreted as someone who does not care at all. He just literally woke up out of the bed and went to the interview. So it is a very objectionable thing to do, right? And for example, you are going to say sorry to a friend, you did something bad with him or her, and you go and say sorry, but you just say it like with a big smile on your face, hi, I'm sorry. So that does not mean that it's going to be interpreted in the way that you genuinely mean that you're sorry, but you're not, because your expressions show that you are not sorry, right? And your gestures show that you're not sorry, right? So your words should be compatible with your non-verbal cues that we have looked at, right? We have already discussed this. That it should reflect in your eyes, it should reflect in your gestures, it should reflect in your posture, in the way you dress. Okay, then varied perception due to different backgrounds, such as cultural. Each one of us perceives the same incident or entity in a different way, which can lead to communication failure. While one communicates, if he or she does not keep in mind the background of the audience or the receiver and communicate accordingly, then there is always a chance that he or she will be misunderstood or misinterpreted. For example, if we go to a village, right? We go to a village and there are a lot of resorts over there. A lot of people go and stay there for some time. So what happens is that we are going from a city and we behave like, we are from a city, we know full well that, sometimes there are issues in the living there, right? And we say that, oh my god, ye nahi hai. You can't find your McDonald's over there, you cannot find your KFC, you cannot find your whatever, some famous food chain, right? You do not have Amazon delivering over there, you do not have Shein, nahi aa raha hai wahan pe, right? So this is the thing, that you go to a village and you say this, but you need to understand there is a difference, right? The background has changed, culturally it has changed, geographically it has changed. So you cannot go to a different environment and expect everything to be according to you. So wherever you're going, you're supposed to behave in that way, how the culture is, how it is going to be like, right? For example, we visit a lot of different religious sites, right? We go to a gurudwara and we cover our heads, right? We wash our feet. So that is what is expected of you. It's a different culture and it requires you to behave in a certain manner. You cannot just go in there, right? So every culture, every situation demands something of you. So we need to keep in mind that. Then wrong assumptions and inferences, which is wrong assumptions can often lead to communication. This is very similar to what we discussed in negative presuppositions, that for example, if something happens, if something bad happens, and you'll be like, yeah, this person is wrong only, na? This person will always do bad for others. So again, you are making wrong assumptions. What if he didn't know that it was going to happen? What if he or she was not aware of the circumstances, so something bad happened, which messed up all the things? So you cannot wrongly assume, and you shouldn't wrongly assume. Then blocked categories are categorical thinking. In general, we react positively to an information only if it is in consonance with our own views and attitudes. Conversely, when we receive information that does not conform to our personal views, habits, and attitudes, or appears unfavorable to us, we tend to react negatively or even disbelieve it. Now, blocked categories and categorical thinking again is something that is, perhaps we always think bad of others, or we are an eternal pessimist. We are always like, मेरे से तो बुरा होना ही है. So we always assume that, right? So if something bad happens, we're like, okay, ये तो होना ही था. This is going to happen, and you are already filling a form, and you're like, I'm not going to get this. मुझको नहीं मिलेगा ये, right? So it's, if you always keep on doing that, then of course you will always blame yourself, you will blame something for bad to happen, and there's always going to be a break in communication over there. Even if the other person is going to help you out, you'll be like, no, मेरे से तो बुरा होना ही है, I'm not going to get that, right? So that is blocked categories or categorical thinking. Our attitude is the problem, our nature is a problem, our personality is a problem. Then emotional, psychosocial, and unsettled state, which of course is like, you want to talk about something really happy with your friend, but your friend is going through something really bad in her life, in her or his life, or she is depressed, she is sad. So he or she listens to your happy news, but he or she won't be able to process it the way you wanted. You wanted her to scream with joy, right? But he or she is not able to do that because they are going through something, right? So they won't express that kind of happiness that you wanted to, right? It happens a lot that you are WhatsApping a friend, or he or she is not in that mood or framework of mind to reply back in that same attitude, or in that same bubbly emotional state that you wanted him or her to. So emotional, psychosocial, and unsettled state. Because we are humans, we are prone to mood behavior, mood changes, behavioral changes. And we cannot expect the other person to be just as happy, or we cannot expect the other person to completely empathize or sympathize with me at all times. Okay, so these are semantic noise. This is internal noise that can be created. Limited vocabulary, we go to a new place, we don't know the language. Then incompatibility, we are saying something and our face is doing something, or it is reflecting differently in our outfit or our personality. Then varied perception or different backgrounds, that another person can be, different from us culturally, right? He may come to Delhi for the first time. For him, it might be new. For us, it might be same because we live in the city. We were born here. But we need to be careful that we do not offend him, right? Then wrong assumptions and inferences that we can always not say that, galati hona hai wala thing. We cannot assume that something is wrong without hearing the other person first. Then block categories and categorical thinking, that our attitude and our nature shouldn't dictate the communication. If we think that some person is wrong, it does not mean he's always going to be wrong. Then emotional, psychosocial, and unsettled state. It is our emotions are going to dictate our communication, and we should be mindful of what the other person is also going through if he or she is sad, and we should be careful that we shouldn't tell them something that might trigger their anger or their issues. Okay, then how to overcome the barriers to effective communication. How much time do we have left? Harsh non-verbal language is how are we having sorry, eye contact. Non-verbal languages, gestures, eye contact, our facial expressions, these are all non-verbal. These are all non-verbal language, and we have already discussed this. We've already looked at in the previous class about how these matter to communication and how these are important. And if we are communicating verbally, it should reflect in our eyes. It should reflect in our hands, in our gestures, in our posture, in the outfit that we wear, in our facial expressions. It should all reflect that. That is non-verbal language. Okay. Anonymous asking the same question again and again without making sure what you're asking. It makes no sense. It's okay if the points are different in another book. The point it's absolutely fine. It is absolutely fine. The point is you need to understand what semantic noise is. Okay, the examples can be different. The way the book tells you, the language can be different, but it is the same thing that is being taught to you. Again, there is this communication barrier. You can see that. See, for example, you're all commerce students, right? And if you are being taught commerce, I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know your subjects, but if you're taught commerce from one prescribed textbook, right? And then you do not understand that and you buy another textbook. The same thing is being taught to you, but the language is different. But that doesn't mean कि change ही हो गया ना commerce. That does not mean commerce of geography हो गया है वाला thing, right? So it can of course be different. That does not mean that the whole thing changes. Okay. Kimti, channel noise and semantic noise. Channel noise is external barriers, right? And semantic noise are internal barriers. Like in semantic noise, we discussed internally, emotional issues, right? It can be emotional. It can be us assuming wrongly of the other person. It can be we thinking about that, the information galat hi hogi, right? It can be, just a second. I hope you can see this. It can be our issue, that limited vocabulary, that is our problem. It is internal. Like I've said, that channel noise is external and semantic noise is internal. Our issue with the language, limited vocabulary. Our issue with how we are telling, right? It is us that is at problem. Our non-verbal and verbal communication is not in tandem. Sorry. then our background can be different from the other person. We are wrongly assuming, our emotional states can be wrong, right? And then channel is physical, external. Whatever that is problem with us, whatever that we are thinking, it can be semantic, and whatever that is happening outside, like the crowd, physical noise, inappropriate media, we are choosing the medium wrong. We are not the media, we are choosing the medium wrong. There are multiple receivers, information overload, we are scared of the we are scared of the teachers. So that is what the main difference is, Kimti, that channel noise is always external, whereas semantic noise is always internal. Okay. Bhavyati, this your lectures will be uploaded on your dashboard, so don't worry. You know, spamming the chat box doesn't mean that uh, matlab that's really rude to on the part of your other classmates. If you have one question to ask, ask it once and I'll have a look at it. But if you keep on spamming the chat box, then that's not nice. I do not have any information regarding this, Iram. So, Iram, if you ask me 20 or 30 times, that doesn't mean I will have any information. And Iram, I can see. Okay, so do not spam the inbox. Shivi blocked categories is, that's something wrong with us. It's our issues that we are projecting onto the other things. Block categories or categorical thinking is we react positively to an information only if it's in consonance with our views, right? So, for example, like I've said, if we are an eternal optimist, we will always think that, everything will be okay, everything will be all right. But if we are a pessimist, we'll always think that something is going to go wrong with us, right? Or, for example, a lot of times this happens right now in the news. Okay, I do not want to break this topic, but in the news, we always go in consonance with the people, their views go with us if we are somehow connecting to it, right? And we then immediately the other person goes bad, right? That ways we are sorry, not that goes bad, but we think that the other person is wrong, right? If you're watching a debate and we think that no, this does not make sense. Like, Shivi, you are debating with me. Okay, no, you're debating with Nikhil, for example, and you are supporting the things that I also think is true. So I will immediately support you and I will not support Nikhil. Okay, so that's blocked categories. That is something that is again breaking communication because I'm not trying to understand what Nikhil is saying or where Nikhil is coming from, right? So even if I'm seeing you and Nikhil debate, Shivi, then I need to understand where you are coming from and where Nikhil is coming from. So that's blocked categories. That sometimes we do not understand why is that person saying this? Where is he coming from? So that is blocked categories. I hope you understand what I'm saying, Shivi. Khushi, I don't know, it's very easy. Khushi, you can go to the SOL website and wherever you see that online classes, click on it. Click on it. And you can easily join through your laptop. See, from now onwards, let me just tell you that I am not going to reply to this question of where to buy the book or kaun si book buy karni hai wala thing. Okay. Okay, Archie. Okay, Vishali, that's good. And why don't you just share the um, link with me right now and I can perhaps do it. Like, I'll share it. We still have time left, by the way. Where is everyone going? Siddhi, we have 5 units and we have covered 2 units and there are 3 more: reading, writing, and speaking. Okay. So I think because it's already 1 hour and we are still left with overcoming the barriers to communication, strategies to overcome the barriers to communication, 7 C's of communication, and listening. And because it's already time, I have to stop over here. So because we started the class late anyway. So we discussed today barriers to communication, and we discussed semantic noise and channel noise. So I think this is a good place to stop, and I will continue the lecture in the next class. So I don't think so your class on 26th. So it will be on Thursday only then. So we will discuss the rest of the lesson in the next class. All right. Chetan, I don't think so, but I think the group has been formed on Teams app, and Azdak, they will be posted soon. So I think the Teams app has a group. I don't know if you can see it. If you can, then let me know. If you're not, let's see. Okay, Kimti, you can be questioned on what a long answer can come like, what are the barriers to communication, right? Something like that. Okay, all right. So I think I'll stop over here. Next class at 27th. All right. No, all the classes, Dinesh, will be on Microsoft Word. Sorry, Microsoft Teams. And if there's any information that is to be shared, we will make a team, we will make a group on Teams app, or we will make a WhatsApp group, which is, of course, we'll do it later because there are a lot of classes to go now. All right, so I think I'll stop over here. Okay, so I'll see you in the next class. मैम मैं यहीं stop कर दूं?
ठीक है मैम, कोई बात नहीं।
ठीक, क्योंकि वो बच्चे फिर
वो तो बच्चे क्वेश्चन पूछते ही रहेंगे।
जाने लगे, मुझे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, वो निकल वो साइन आउट कर रहे हैं। ठीक है, चलिए ठीक है, thank you. Okay, I'll see you in the next class and we'll continue. I'm sorry for the technical glitch earlier in the class, and whatever that was left today will be taught in the next class. So please be present on Thursday. All right, thank you.